For today's program, I'm going to start with a short presentation about the history of the grant project, the theater itself, and then I'm going to allow or followed by Blake Mormon, who is a former actor and managing director of the theater, Marian Eastman, who is the co-founder of the theater, and we have Christy Howard with us, who is actually the current managing director of Jubilee. So I'm very, very excited that they were able to join us and share some of their thoughts about the theater. We will hopefully have time for questions at the end. Feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat box. We'll monitor those as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a background about the project itself. Maybe. There we go. So in 2016, the records of the Jubilee Theater were donated to Fort Worth Public Library. We received a small addition in 2017. In 2019, we applied for a grant to process and make the collection available to the public, along with an exhibit of some of the material in the collection. Applying for this grant for this particular collection was twofold. One, we have a number of performing arts collections, so we thought that this would enhance that. And also, and more importantly, Jubilee Theater is an integral part of Fort Worth culture. As Sandra Mayo and Elvin Holt write in their book, Stages of Struggle and Celebration, A Production History of Black Theater in Texas, Black theater's uniqueness is not so much in its originality, but in its existence. That is, its influence on, reflection of, and contribution to the whole. It should be archived, chronicled in articles, books, and exhibits, and remembered. And that's what we really wanted to do for Jubilee Theater, archive the story for future generations. So here's actually a before and after photo of the collection. The collection was in decent shape and order. We just worked to describe it and put it in a better order. So in November of 2019, Debbie Frick was hired as our project archivist. She did majority of the processing, and by processing, I mean she would survey the collection as a whole, kind of get a feel for what was in there, arrange it if need be, describe what was in the collection, and then perform basic preservation needs on the collection. As we all know, March of 2020 changed everything for everybody, and stay-at-home orders required us to pause all work because to process a collection, you have to be with the collection. Unfortunately, Debbie was unable to return, so in May we hired in May of 2020, we hired Penny Castillo to finish the processing and the collection inventory while I worked on the exhibit. And another adjustment that we made was we were hoping to have this program in person along with the exhibit where you could come and look at the material, but unfortunately we can't do that. So we moved the exhibit and the presentation online, and I'm going to show you that. So this is actually what in the archives world we call a finding aid, but it's an inventory to what is in the collection. It does not give you an item by item listing of what is in the collection, but it does give you a folder listing of what's in the collection. And it's broken down by categories. We have scripts, both handwritten scripts with handwritten notes. Some of these scripts were produced, some were not. We also have quite a bit of photographs from different productions, as well as fundraisers, parties, and we have a few administrative records, along with some production records and things like that. So the online exhibit is here, and we will post these links in the chat so you can look at them. It goes over a history of the theater as well as a few galleries from some of the shows and a listing of the shows based off of different seasons. One really exciting thing that if you're familiar with Jubilee and the people that participated and acted in these plays is if you browse the items, we don't have names for everybody in these plays. A lot of the plays are identified, but we don't have the actual names of the players. So if you click on a photograph or an item and go down to the bottom, you can comment. So you can leave either a memory of a play that you saw, or if you know a person in the photograph, you could leave the name of the person. So we encourage you all to do that. And then we also have this contact us. So if you wanted to just leave any kind of other information, you can do that. So that is the online exhibit. Please take a look and see what you think. And if you see here, we have very few items digitized. We have less than 150 items digitized, and there are thousands and thousands of items in the collection. So, you know, hopefully one day we will get more digitized, but as of right now, please take a look at the online exhibit and tell us what you think. So Jubilee Theater roots actually go back to the Sojourner Troupe players. Irma Duffy Lewis and 5 others founded Fort Worth's first African-American theater company in 1972. Lewis had a background in theater and dance and worked closely with many youth organizations like the Junior Debutantes of Fort Worth, YWCA, and the Mayor's Council on Youth. It was with this company that Rudy Eastman met Marian Johnson. Although Rudy had performed on stage, he found his role as a director and writer. As a graduate of Paul Quinn College, Rudy taught history and theater for Fort Worth ISD, and his love for both subjects can be seen in his choice of diverse stage performances. Marian attended Wiley College and majored in biology and chemistry. She was a medical researcher by trade. Marian's involvement with theater, though, began at a very early age. When she was being interviewed for the book Stages of Struggle and Celebration, she said that theater activity was all around her as a child. So in 1981, the now married couple formed Jubilee Players. The group secured a space at the Community Christian Church on East Vickery Street, which is actually the same location where the Sojourner Troupe Players started. They began their 4-season play with Alice Childress's Mojo in the String, Lorraine Hansberry, A Raisin in the Sun, James Rosenberg's The Life and Death of Sneaky Finch, and Rudy Eastman's Dunbar is Not Just a High School. By the end of the first season, the Eastmans had to leave the Vickery space due to low attendance and high royalty fees. In a 2003 Fort Worth Business Press interview, Mr. Eastman said that they could not afford royalties, so he searched the public library for material and began writing his own. With no stage of their own, they turned their attention to becoming a traveling troupe who would perform wherever space was available. It was also during that first season that Muriel and Darwin Mendoza saw one of Jubilee's performances. They saw the potential in Eastman and the players, so they became supporters who volunteered for the theater. And they handled the business side of Jubilee out of their home and actually kept a mailing list in the trunk of their car until they found a permanent space. In 1982, with the help of Darwin, Jubilee Players received nonprofit status. The Mendozas were so important to the players that Rudy was quoted as saying, "No one could possibly write a history of Jubilee Theater without mentioning Darwin and Muriel. Darwin was a principal fundraiser back then." For the next 4 seasons, the Jubilee players performed wherever they could. They made appearances at Stage West, upstairs at the White Elephant, Caravan of Dreams, and they even did some shows in Dallas. Some of the shows included Peter Gill's Small Change, Eastman and Mendoza's It Ain't Grease, It's Dixie Peach, Eastman's adaptation of The Blues Ain't Nothing But a Good Man Feeling Bad and Prodigal, Sam Art Williams' Home, and the very popular Negroes in Space. In 1986, Eastman collaborated with Douglas Ballantine on Negroes in Space. The musical comedy follows Professor Leonardo Eldorado, Shelley Coupe DeVille, and Delois Lane on an intergalactic quest for stolen funk to save the overmortgaged Earth from its creditor, Miss Savage. Eastman described it as a political satire of everything that was going on in the culture. The show opened at Caravan of Dreams for 3 weeks, and it was so popular that it was extended for another 3 weeks. It was the most money the theater had seen since it had opened. The image on the right is actually a page from the script with the song Poor Old Earth. And that song really stood out to me when I was looking through the script as something that could have been written today. Eastman seized on the success of Negroes in Space and asked the actors and musicians to give up their small stipends so they could rent a space. They said yes. Those stipends, along with a fundraising campaign led by board member Joe Dooley, allowed the players to successfully raise the matching $15,000 needed for an Amon G. Carter Foundation Challenge grant. They rented a space at East Rosedale across the street from the TWU campus. When the lease signing took place on January 15, 1987, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Rudy saw this as a good sign of what was to come for the theater. On May 15, 1987, the new theater opened with the popular Eastman adaptation, The Blues Ain't Nothing But a Good Man Feeling Bad. In the first full season in their new home, Jubilee produced 6 shows for a total of 83 performances. Jubilee was becoming a great success. Then one evening in 1988, something happened that would eventually change Jubilee. The piano player became ill during a run of a musical review that required a piano player. Percussionist Eddie Dunlap suggested his brother-in-law. Eastman was hesitant but desperate and thought, well, it's only for one night. And in walked Joe Rogers. Once Rogers began playing, Eastman recognized his talent. In 1990, the two collaborated on the first of many shows, which was Midnight Walker. The two men would create some of Jubilee's most memorable shows, including Book of Job, which premiered in 1996. I'm gonna actually play a short clip from the Book of Job. Angelo Reed is singing, he plays Job, and the company of the Book of Job is in the background, and the speaking part is Tony Pollard Watts. So I'm gonna play that real quick.
Lord, you're with me. You got me there. Your hands will hold me, and I know no matter where I go, you are there. You're always there. After Job had prayed for his friend, the Lord gave him success more than he had before.
Together, Eastman and Rogers made a lasting impression on the Fort Worth theater scene, and theaters from across the country asked to produce their shows. In a 2002 Fort Worth Star-Telegram article, Journalist Mary Rogers said that they were recognized for their imaginative, original musicals that transcended race and economic status. 1991-92 was a big season. Not only was it Jubilee's 10th season, but it was also the season that Eastman left Fort Worth ISD to devote all his time to Jubilee. In August of 1991, the board of directors secured enough funds to hire their first full-time employees. Rudy Eastman as artistic director, Gloria Abbs as house manager, and Blake Mormon as managing director. They had already been doing the work in their roles, but now it was actually official. In 1992, 5 years after Jubilee claimed its first permanent location in Polytechnic, they moved to downtown Fort Worth to 506 Main Street, which is where they are now. Fort Worth Sundance Square was just starting to develop, and Jubilee found its home on the first floor of the Jarvis building. The board had raised $32,000 to renovate the space and for a 5-year lease. Kate's Sister was the first production for the opening night in the new Jubilee location. The 25th season, 2005-2006, was a time for celebration. The theater had just signed a new lease, and they recently completed a $450,000 renovation to that space. But it was also a time of mourning. On May 31st, 2005, Rudy Eastman passed away in his sleep. In a 1996 Fort Worth Star-Telegram article, Rudy Eastman said, "We bring something special and unique to the Fort Worth arts community. We are primarily an African-American theater, but it is a culture to be shared. Communication helps break barriers, and people who understand each other are less likely to hate each other." I think that could not be more true. Jubilee Theater plays a role in breaking those barriers by sharing the African-American experience through musicals and plays through Fort Worth and North Texas. And my slide didn't want to move. Rudy Eastman had big shoes to fill, and finding a new artistic director proved to be a difficult task. However, that did not stop Jubilee from producing critically acclaimed and record-breaking shows, including A Motown Christmas and It Ain't Nothing But the Blues. Artistic directors also continue to produce shows by well-known artists such as Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye and Alice Walker's The Color Purple, but also stayed true to Jubilee's roots by producing originals like Sam Shade and Diaries of a Barefoot Diva. Today, the title of artistic director belongs to Dee Wambui Richardson, who is continuing to build on Jubilee's proud history with a promising future. I'm really excited to see what Jubilee has in store for the upcoming 40th season, as I'm sure all of you are as well. So I'm actually now going to turn this over. As I mentioned, we have Blake Mormon, Marian Eastman, and Christy Howard with us. And Blake Mormon and Marian have kindly offered to share some of their favorite memories about the theater. And then Christy will tell us some information about the upcoming, what the theater has in store for us in the future. So I will turn it over to Blake.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I tell you, that took me back, and I don't know, I wasn't quite ready for some of that, and I dab a tear or two. So, Jubilee has been in my life for a mighty long time, since 1984. And, I think it's only apropos that I tell you how that all happened. I was a good friend and childhood friend and fraternity brother with one of Marian's cousins. His name is John Gales Jr. And he told me about his cousin having a theater And he knew that in my past, you know, I had done a lot of arts and music, theater, and dance, and he knew 9 times out of 10 I would be interested. So we went to a show. I think we went and saw It Ain't Grease, It's Dixie Peach for the first time in that Worst Bar and Grill downtown. And then later on, it turned out that Rudy was producing another show, a musical called Cotton Club Nights. And John called me and said, well, Rudy needs some dancers. And this is really how I got involved. He said, Rudy needs some dancers, and we've got to go out there and help find some dancers. So I said, okay. So at the time I was a student at TCU, and I knew of 2 dancers, female dancers there who were African-American. They were friends of ours, and you know, so we went up to them and asked them, hey, since you ladies dance, would y'all be willing to come and audition for this show, a local show? And they said yes. And so that was Edna Paulette Braxton and Adonica Lewis. And you know, John knew a dancer and a showgirl at UNT, where he was going to school, had gone to school, and he did the same thing. When they asked her to come, she did. Then we had a friend from high school and college named Tracy Wilcox, who had been an All-American cheerleader for the University of Texas. And we knew she was a gymnast, but we didn't really know, you know, when we would go to the parties, we could dance. So, you know, we said, well, we might as well ask her. And she came. And, you know, from there is history. I had another good friend in the play named Todd Jeffrey, who he and I had been in the Texas Boys Choir together. And so he and John decided that they were going to dare me to audition. And that wasn't my intent at all, because I hadn't done anything in years. So, you know, I did. It's okay. So I got a little small part. I was cool with that. Then all of a sudden somebody dropped out, and my little small part ended up being a feature part where word got out I used to tap. So I ended up with a dance number, a major sing, all this, you know. This was produced at the White Elephant Saloon, and Joe Dooley, as you stated earlier. While, yes, every major renovation or move that Jubilee did, even up to from Rosedale to Main Street and anything in between, we would not have been able to do that without Joe Dooley. He would go out there and find the money. He would go and he would make sure of all the designs were done. And his wife, Mary, who is now on the board of Jubilee, was right there with him, and she would do whatever it took. And like you said about Darwin and Muriel, they were godsends. There were a whole lot of other people out there who did the same things. You know, and yes, we asked the cast at any time to donate for various fundraising gigs we had going. They would do it, you know, work for half the money. We weren't making much money anyway. We probably were making, you know, we made $25 a show. You know, we were high cotton. We were the main highly paid ones. You know, everybody else was getting $10 maybe. So, yeah, but we were still willing to give whatever we could, because we, you know, that whole thing about pride and joy, we had a lot of pride, and we did, I'm telling you, whatever. Now, as far as some good stories, I'm gonna do a couple of them. I'm gonna let Marian speak. But some of my favorite ones, 2 in particular, happened while we were there on Rosedale. And we had the show going, I think it was Split Second. And at the time I was working the lights. And so the light booth was above the box office at the front of the theater. And you could hear the front door open when it opened and all this kind of stuff. So the show was going on, and all of a sudden I heard the door open. And there was a curtain, and you could see inside the door open, the curtain would move. And the curtain moved, and I said, oh, okay, somebody's coming in the door. And then all of a sudden we heard this voice, Chantalada Stone. And we were like, who is that? And it turned out that the guy, the actor on stage, which was Grover Colson at the time, he told the ladies, ma'am, we're in the middle of a play. And he told her, you need to be quiet. I've been watching you anyway. You can't act. I need to see Chantalada. I mean, this is in the middle of the play with people in the audience. And so Chantalada had to come out and go and talk to the lady. It turns out she was a preacher's kid. So her father was a pastor of a church, and this was one of the parishioners who knew that she was in this show. So this person stopped, double parked in the middle of Rosedale, got out their car and came in and did this. It was so funny. We could not believe it. And of course, my last one is, of course, I met my love of my life and my wife on the stage there at Jubilee, Kalita Strickland. We were both in the original cast of God's Trombones. And so, you know, Jubilee is everything for me. Rudy was my best man. We had all kind of folks who you know, sang and participated in our wedding from Jubilee. So that's it for me at this moment. I'll stop and let Marian go on.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, my photo will not show up. I don't know what that's saying, but anyway, wow, Blake brought back some good memories. I think one of my favorite stories has to be with Negroes in Space, and we were just going for chicken. In the middle of the show, we have the main actors go down to the closest chicken shack to get lunch between shows, between acts. They go and they don't show up. After the 15-minute intermission, 20 minutes go by, they don't show up. 25 minutes go by, they still don't show up. About 30 minutes, they still don't show up. So by 33 minutes, when Rudy was just about to go into epileptic shock, they show up. And we go, where have you guys been? What are you doing? What are you thinking? Oh, well, we just went down the street for chicken. That went through the whole Fort Worth and Dallas theater communities. Everybody had a laugh off of that. Every show you go to, if it was a Jubilee person in the audience, they'd ask them if they were going for chicken. I mean, it just turned out to be a colossal joke. So that was one of my favorite stories there. And one of my others was, we were doing, of course, one of our original productions, because like Blake said, we had no money. So we had to come up with what we could right quick. So we had this show called Back on the Corner, and it was done as a tribute to Evans and Rosedale, which was always a heart of the Black community, especially, you know, the early part of this city. It was always the heart of the community. So everything happened at Evans and Rosedale. I mean, from high-end land deals to your latest drug action. Whatever you needed, you could find at Rosedale and Evans. So this was written in a tribute to all the people that you could just sit on any corner and just casually see, because we did a lot of people watching. So one day we had the show, and this guy came in with the at the time one of the flop brim hats on, big white hat, had on a white suit. He was, you know, dressed beautifully dressed for this summer day and everything. So he strolls in, and he comes in and he watches the show, and he comes out and he says, "Boy, that was really, really good." He said, "Yeah, you just really captured something. I'm gonna bring my girls back." And so we go, "Yeah, okay, fine, good." You know, so it's like we strike that as a good one. So he does bring his girls back. And I mean, literally, he brought his girls back. They enjoyed that show so much. They said that we had identified characters that they knew on the street, people that they grew up with. And to me, that was such a tribute to know that we had not mocked them in any way, that they felt elevated by what they saw and what was represented. So that was one of the highlight marks for me, was that event, that I will never forget them. Can't remember the guy's name, but I can see their faces and feel their energy clearly. I guess the other thing, and Jennifer, you captured it, and I'm so glad that you did, and that is the history and philosophy behind Jubilee, because it wasn't just about doing theater, or, as we say, they're acting on stage. It wasn't about that at all. It was a deep philosophical delve into we as Black people, what we represented for the art, how we saw the art, and how we wanted to portray ourselves. Because at that time when we started, there weren't many Black plays, and most of them that were out there were very, very revolutionary, and in a lot of ways did not speak to Southern culture and behavior. So we felt it important to tell our stories and not East Coast stories, because after all, we're from Fort Worth, we're not from New York City. Okay, so that was the import of that, is that we were trying to tell our own stories, and plus we wanted to give the talent that was here, because every place has talent. You got talented people, and we wanted to give the people here a chance to show what they had, and that they were part of the big game also. So I applaud you for really capturing that, and really seeing that it was a lot of philosophical intent in what was done with Jubilee. You know, not just for ourselves, but for the greater good of the community. It really was a deep seated effort. Very much so. I don't think I have another story.
Thank you, Marian. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Christy, did you want to say some words about what's coming up? And
Oh, good morning, good afternoon. I'm just amazed, and I just will start by saying first, thank you, Jennifer and Linda and the team at Fort Worth Public Library for making this possible. You don't know how many countless calls we receive for individuals who want to comb through Jubilee's history. There is something very dynamic about what Jubilee has become over this 40-year span, and the spirit of survival and perseverance that is in the halls of Jubilee. So first, even before I go to any of my comments, I definitely want to offer us a virtual standing ovation and bravo to those individuals that are part of that story, every actor, every writer, certainly the Eastmans, like Mormon, and I can't begin to name everyone. But what this has done has given me the opportunity to enjoy one of my favorite jobs of my whole professional career. The ability to take art and use it as a medium to tell those stories. You know, art has a great way of taking something that's a tough topic and really opening the door to a very constructive conversation. And I will tell you that is one of the things that you have to look forward to in Jubilee's 40th season, as artistic director Wambui Richardson continues in that same vein. The full season will be released on September 15th. And of course, just like everyone else, we are shuffling and figuring these things out, as the season would have been announced early April. So stay tuned with bated breath. You know, we have imagined what season 40 would look like, and we did not think that it was going to be virtual or streaming at all. But this is what I will say. Look forward to 6 performances, just productions, as Jubilee has always done. They will be offered all streaming for the duration of the season. We are hoping that by show 3, we will be able to have some in-person performances. We're still racking our brains about what that's going to look like, but we're certainly not going to let this monumental year go by without celebrating its legacy and more than anything, celebrating what the future brings. We are very excited. Again, thank you. And I can't wait to come and see the collection for myself. Online is great, but there's something to be said about what's in those boxes. It speaks of the hard work, and it speaks of a cultural gem of Fort Worth. And it only goes back to the saying, the city of cowboys and culture. You can't get any better than Fort Worth. It's an awesome combination. And again, I am just very elated to be a part of Jubilee's storied history. So again, Jennifer, Linda, thank you so much. Your work is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to adding more to the collection.
Well, we thank you for trusting us with the collection. We're very excited to, this is normally when I would say, come look at the collection. But hopefully when all this is over, people will come. It is open for anybody to come look at it when of course we are back open to the public. But so this is something that is meant to really get people to be able to see that original scripts. You know, there's handwritten scripts by Rudy and Gloria, notes on those scripts about stage presence. And I mean, it's a really amazing collection. So, you know, I'm really excited that you have let us take care of it and preserve it. And I was really excited to see y'all were able to start streaming your shows. So that was a good pivot. We're all learning in this time. So I was really happy to see Jubilee moving to that streaming. So we do have some time for questions. If anybody has any. Have I missed any? My background producer, Jana? Or Linda, have I missed any questions?
I see one from Deanna Evans. Can you see that one?
I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
Well, her hand is raised. I don't think she's put anything in the Q&A.
Oh,
Her hand.
And Lorna Hampton asks if there are volunteer opportunities. Are you meaning with Jubilee or with the library? Christy?
Jubilee.
Yes.
Yeah, Lorna Hampton is asking if there are volunteer opportunities with Jubilee.
You know, the great thing about Jubilee, there is always room to do something at Jubilee. That's actually how the organization was founded. Just because you've got one title does not mean that's what you always do. I think Blake alluded to that as well. But what I will say, we do have volunteer opportunities. You would call our box office and speak with our box office coordinator, Vita Rodriguez, and you'll call our main number at 817-338-4411 to discuss volunteer opportunities. At this time, the theater itself is closed to the public, but when we're rearing to go, we'll be looking for those individuals who have a spirit of service and hospitality. So certainly, please reach out. We'll look forward to having you.
So there was a question about was Jubilee part of a larger African American theater movement? And I would say yes.
Yes.
Not necessarily in Texas. So Blake was very kind enough to tell me I was incorrect, and he looked over the exhibit before I put it out there, and I originally had Jubilee as being the oldest in Texas, but there's one older in Houston, right, Blake? The Houston.
Yep. Yes.
But there is, and Christy, you might know more about the larger African American theater movement, but there definitely was one and is one still.
I can speak to that.
Oh, go ahead, Marian, please.
Yeah. At the time the Jubilee was started, there was a large renaissance going on in Black theater. And we were part of that in that we were doing that part. We were doing the New York scene, we felt, here in Fort Worth and in Texas. So yes, we were part of that larger scene, and we were recognized for it and supported by it because there were lots of our New York friends. We had made friends with some of everybody, and starting this, we talked to a lot of people. So in starting this, there was a lot of support from East Coast with actors, with ideas, with telling us what they were doing in their theaters. You know, so a lot of it didn't translate, some of it did, and down to in supplying future actors to the East Coast scene, one of which was Eugene Lee. He wasn't identified on one of your pictures, but Eugene Lee was part of the original cast of Soldier's Play on Broadway, and starting opera with the Negro Ensemble Company. And that was one of our other links there. And of course, that link brought us to Sam and a lot of the other actors that were big on that stage. So yeah, we did have a part in it, in that we were supported by the people on the East Coast that were really pushing forward their movements, but we were applauded for what we did down here. And yes, George, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of his last name. I think it was Miller, started the ensemble company in Houston. And it was like maybe a year older than Jubilee, because we also had alliances with him in doing the work, because we were all just starting out. So we had a good understanding and a good relationship with him also. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it did. Thank you so much, Marian. And I noticed Eugene Lee also wrote Killingsworth, one of the plays that was produced at Jubilee.
Yeah, we premiered I think 2 or 3 of his productions. They all premiered at Jubilee. Yes, 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 and he's still a good supporter.
So there was another question. I just lost it though. Oh, are there plans to reopen a school associated with the company to cultivate young talent?
What I can say about that is this it's been about a 4-year sabbatical of Jubilee not participating in any educational outreach opportunities. We did, for the first time this summer, offer a virtual puppet theater and storytelling component for students grades 1st grade through the 8th grade this summer. And so we were very excited. We're getting our feet back in the water. Education is a I would say it's a little bit of a conundrum. We're a small staff, and so we'll need to do some expansion and get a sure plan in place. It's not off the table, and I can see it as a part of Jubilee's future. Where in the future, not too sure. So the best way to make that happen is to keep buying tickets, keep supporting Jubilee, and anytime that we can add programming that gives back, that helps develop our audience and helps the younger generation to expand their appreciation of performance arts, we're definitely in a position to do that.
Thank you. There was another one. Has there been any additional investment in the live streaming?
There has been initial investment in the live streaming. This is not where we saw ourselves going at all. And so what we have realized, we're really good at producing things on stage. Still trying to figure out producing it on film. It is different. And when you're having to figure out how to stage it for film, it's different. So we've done some enhancements from the first video to the second video as it relates to audio, where next our big focus now is making sure that we're able to call the videos as they need to be called, doing some different arranging, changing our rehearsal style, our tech rehearsal style, to making it a much more seamless process for the production staff as well as the actors. And really, we're learning as we go. So yes, we're reinvesting all the time. We're reinventing the wheel all the time. I think this time has, and I've said it time and time again, this time has allowed for performance art theaters to do what they do best, which is create. It's pushed us outside of our envelope, and it's really made us chart the new normal, chart a new course, and realize that theater has to be different. It's going to be different, and it's never going to be the same again. So I certainly see live streaming as a part of our future. I don't see it going away, but we cannot wait to get back in our space and have people in our seats. It's something about that energy of the audience. When you think about a stage performance, that collective energy of the audience feeds the actors, but it really lends to the full experience. So that's where we would love to be, but we're going to keep producing as long as we can using live stream.
Well, I know my mom and I really, really miss the live shows.
Mm-hmm.
So we miss going to shows and seeing it. So, you know, I think we're all ready to be back in the theater with you. Mm-hmm. There was another question from Kevin. Has the current social climate had an influence on any of the productions or actions to come from the theater?
Oh, this is probably one of those questions that the artistic director can answer, but I can say yes. I will tell you that this is a great medium. We're going to use the shows this season to tell that story. We're going to use the shows. The first show really is going to talk about social injustice, racial equality in a industry that you don't normally think that there was any discrimination, because it's all when the performer or when the patron sees it's all fun and games, but you don't see the pain behind the scenes. So I would say yes. And it's what Jubilee has always done, is people have laughed and cried in the audience. It's always given an outlook. It's opened the door. It's broadened the way individuals have thought about those issues that we're still battling today. So certainly you'll see some of those same things, have some of those same conversations, and we will certainly be opening up conversations to the public so that we can examine these further than the 90-minute show.
There was another one in the chat. It says, are there any plans to reunite Jubilee players from those who were a part of the original days or those who were a part of the Rosedale location?
I can't answer that question. I'm just going to be quite honest. There are a lot of those individuals I don't know. I'm in season 5. So when I want to know something, I ask people like Horatio Porter, who's been involved with Jubilee for quite some time. I'll call Mrs. Eastman and ask. I'll even call Blake and ask him. So we don't know. I know that, again, our 40th season where we're planning to try to get as many people to come back as possible. So we're still working towards and figuring that out. So just stay tuned. We promise you'll be pleased.
I see that Wambui is on. Did you want to let him answer that question?
He can. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to allow him to talk. Is he there?
Is he there?
Hello, everybody. Can you all hear? You all caught me by surprise. Without a doubt, we think about what's happening in the world every day, and we allow that to filter into what we do as a season. But at the same time, the thing that we, Christy and I, we sit down with our board and we talk about, it's not just about talking about what's happening in the world, but creating a platform where everybody can come to the table and share in those thoughts. What was beautiful about listening to this webinar, as I learned more and more about Jubilee Theatre, is one of the comments made by Mr. Eastman, in that it's about bringing the community together so that everyone can share, so everyone can learn from one another. And you can't, as he said, or as I heard, it is hard to hate someone when you understand where they come from. So that's what this season is all about. Us spreading the word about where we've come from so that we can create an even platform for conversation.
Well, I'm really, really excited to see what you have in store for next season. So keeping our fingers crossed that we can get in quickly.
Most definitely.
So I think that we got everybody's questions answered. Did I miss anything, anybody?
There's a question from John Gales. He asked, did I make any of the pictures?
I don't know, John. Go on the website and like I said, I'm not sure. Not everybody. So the photographs, for the most part, we have the name of the play or the musical, and some of the years might be a little, some of them might be combined, but we don't have the names of the actors and actresses on those for the most part. So we were hoping before all of this that we were going to have people come in and help us identify these photos before we open the collection up, but COVID. So, you know, if you see yourself in the website, please let us know that it's you and we can add your name to the description, because there are quite a few in there that we don't have people's names, and that's a little, we want to get those names on there.
Can we put the website up again so
Yes.
people?
There you go. And like I mentioned in the presentation, I only scanned 139 items for this online exhibit, and there are thousands and thousands in there. So it takes a lot of time to scan and upload images. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that all done, but that's why, you know, as Christy mentioned, it is just so much better looking at them in person anyway. Virtual is fun, but having your hands on the original is always best. And if you want to know if we have something, you can look at the online inventory, send us an email, and we can, you know, until we're open to the public, we'll be happy to go through that collection and look for you and send you information from that collection until you're able to come and look for yourselves. So Well, it looks like we're almost out of time. So unless I have missed any questions, or if you have any more questions, I think, any final thoughts, comments, anybody?
I hate that there weren't more stories that were told, because I think one of the lasting things about Jubilee is the shared experiences out of the audience and the players. And I would like to have heard more stories to see everyone's interpretation of an exciting time in life for me.
And maybe we can get a reunion going when we're able to all meet in public again. Maybe we can get that happening and get some of these stories recorded. I think that would be good. So let's keep that open. I'm sure other people would be thrilled to hear those stories. I mean, there's a lot that we can read and get from the collection. There's a ton, but firsthand stories is always great. When we posted about this on our Facebook page, so many people talked about how Negroes in Space was their favorite, musical. And so even stories like that from people who saw shows.
Yeah, so I did have something to say about that. So one of the things that Rudy was really great at too, he and the team, was marketing, because again, we had no money, so we had to figure out ways to get the public's attention. And so Negroes in Space was really one of those shows that did that, just the title alone. So the idea came up that we needed to have t-shirts. That was how we were going to get the word out about Negroes in Space. And so we sold all these t-shirts. And so when you would wear your t-shirt and you go out in the public, you would be stopped. Or, you know, people would look at you and give you all kind of eyes and wonder, what the heck is that? What, you know, would stop and ask you, what is a Negro? What are you trying to say? And then, of course, some of our white friends and patrons, they really got drilled. They were like, what the heck are you trying to say, brother? So they had to explain and tell them that, you know, it's a great play, a great musical. You need to go down to Caravan of Dreams to see it. And, you know, we would do those kinds of, Rudy, you know, he was something else. Rudy and Marian and all of Rudy's brothers, Eastman, Jim Pons, you know, Gloria, Abs. I mean, when you would get those people in the room together, you just never knew what was going to come up out of it. And, you know, we always had to watch Rudy. I did, from an experience I had and being in all these shows from a costume perspective, because I was show. I'm not going to say which one it is, because I want this photo to go away, but it won't ever go away. And I didn't ask what the costume looks like. And Rudy had me out there with barely any clothes on. And so from that point forward, I said, every time I thought of a play, you know, he approached me about being in a play. If I couldn't tell from the title and had a good idea of, you know, what period it was in and how the costumes might look, I said, Rudy, what's on your mind? Because you can't have me out there looking crazy. So anyway.
You must be talking about drums.
Oh,
yes, yes.
Anyway, I was there for. Anyway, yeah. Well, from that point forward, which was early on, oh, brother, you got to tell me what you planned. But Jennifer, thank you so much for this.
I appreciate you joining us, and Marian too. I'm very glad that we were able to get y'all to share some of the stories with us. I'm thrilled that we were able to get this collection processed, and can't wait to see more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.